as we can tell from today's reading, God will not allow us to be our own little gods. In their wrestling match, Jacob almost prevails, and so might we. There may be moments when we think that we've convinced God to come to God's good senses and do things our way. But it is precisely at that moment when we are humbled. Our plans don't work out. Defeat is snatched from the jaws of victory. Disaster strikes. And like Jacob, broken and bruised, we can only ask for God's blessing. We can only seek God's favor. That's all the woman in today's gospel wants. She is in a wrestling match of major proportions with a judge who has neither fear of God nor respect for anyone. This is a woman who is up against it. And to make matters worse, she has no status. All of her access to the law and the courts was lost when her husband died. But still, she comes to do battle. And she came, and she came, and she came, always with the same cry: I want justice against my enemy. The judge, the Living Bible paraphrase tells us, ignored her for a while, but eventually she got on his nerves. Now our imaginations are free to play with that picture as he goes out to get his morning edition of the Jerusalem Post in his driveway. There she is in the bushes, holding his copy of the paper, saying, "You want this? Grant me justice." As he settles into his seat at the corner booth of the restaurant, where all his pals and pals hang out, there she is, peering at him over his menu. "How about a little justice with your juice this morning, Your Honor?" Slipping out by the side door, he settles in for his walk to work. And just as he turns the corner, bam! There she is. "Listen, if I could just get your signature on this line here and that line there, justice will be served and I will go on my way," she says. It's getting so that the judge is not sleeping at night and even beginning to dread opening the closet door for fear of being accosted by this woman. Most translations, by the way, are content to leave this as a wrestling match in which the judge is worn down in the course of the encounters, but the Jerusalem Bible raises the stakes to a much higher level when it has the judge saying, "Even though I have neither fear of God nor respect for any human person, I must give this widow her just rights, since she keeps on pestering me, or she will come and slap me in the face." Some scholars believe that even this translation is not strong enough because the Greek says really not just to wear me out, but literally to give a black eye to. Suddenly we're no longer wrestling, we're boxing, and the judge is afraid that if he doesn't act fairly and fairly quickly, this woman is going to come and punch his lights right out. The judge has a plan, his own agenda. The woman, too, has a plan. It's God's plan that works out for God's purposes. Dr. Thomas G. Long of the Candler School of Theology in Atlanta says that this parable is not so much about our need to be persistent in prayer, but about the character of God. He says, if this sleazy judge will open up his hand to those who seek justice, how much more so will God? While we may want to wrestle with God by living our lives in our own way, God promises that he will never fail us. While we may like nobody or nothing matters to us, God's promises are still there haunting us, like that woman, around every corner. That seems to be especially good news to those of us who wrestle every day with a myriad of problems. A bad diagnosis from the doctor, a job that's yet to be found, the difficult relationship, the list could go on and on and on. What these two stories are telling us is that in the midst of all this, there is quite simply the notion that we cannot escape the presence of God. Our plans, our dreams, our hopes are not outside the scope of God's power and love, which is always being revealed to us in the strangest of ways. In that woman who, like God, never gives up. And those times when we have wrestled with God and God's will in the middle of the night, and even in the midst of all that tossing and turning, have come away with a blessing. That's the message, I think, that God is trying to get through to us in the wee small hours of the morning, and now in the bright sunshine of this beautiful fall day. We have heard promises we've been made that we can stand on. And in those moments, when we wrestle with the deep, dark things of the soul, let today's text be a sign for us that we are children of God. In those times when we have to stand up for ourselves against those who have never heard nor never even care about God, God will be on our side, giving us not just what we need to persevere, but to prevail. The message for this day and every moment of every day is simply this: the same God who was there for Jacob and for that woman will be there for us. Remember that the next time you can't sleep. And then show the tenacity to get back in bed and get ready to feel God's blessing.